What is up, guys? I'm going to be doing another stereo upgrade on the car, or a downgrade, or a return to factory. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But what we're doing is pulling out that double din JVC, putting the factory stereo back in it, and then we're going to be wiring everything for a new amplifier and some other goodies. So let me show you what we're doing. So guys, what we're going to be doing actually, I think, is splitting this video up into probably 3 parts. Once the whole thing was done, I just had a ton of footage. And I know most people don't want to get on YouTube and watch a 3-hour video. So I think the parts are going to be, the first part is installing the stereo, the wiring system, on how we're going to get the high level to low level, all that wired up. Then I think the second part is probably going to be wiring the DSP and the 4-channel amplifier. And then the third part will probably be a speaker unboxing, and then the 6.5 speaker install, or something like that. I'll kind of figure it out as I go. So this is part 1, and this is going to be the wiring harness and how do you prep the factory system to run a DSP and a 4-channel amp. So hope you enjoy it. The first thing we did was we took out this JVC. Oh, you can see my reflection there. Okay, this is the model of the stereo. JVC KW V350BT. Basically, I took it out because it quit working. I was getting a lot of feedback noise, and then eventually just was getting static and then no sound at all. I thought at first maybe it was an RCA or maybe my amplifier, but I pulled this out and put the factory back in, and it seems that it was the stereo. I don't know. So right now the factory stereo is back in that car, and so that means I can't wire up my amplifier, so we're back on factory sound, and I've only got 1 speaker hooked up. It's pretty terrible. But I did not like this stereo to begin with. The Bluetooth connection, super slow. Everything is slow. You push the little selector buttons, there's a huge delay. The mic doesn't really work that well. The Bluetooth pickup, huge delay. It's not even very precise. Like when I'm hitting the back button, sometimes nothing happens. It just, I did not like this stereo even from the get-go, and you know, you get what you pay for, I guess. This thing was on sale. I got it for under $100, I think. Would not recommend it. Not gonna buy it again. So, and I lost my backup camera. So that's one thing I really like about putting the factory stereo back in there, is that I get my backup camera back. I was gonna do just one of the mirror backup cameras and install like an aftermarket, but I never got around to it. So anyway, I get my backup camera back, and I'm happy about that. So this is what we're gonna be putting back in that car. We're gonna be going with the factory stereo. And then this is how we're gonna run the amplifiers. We got this PRV DSP 2.8X. We've got 8 independent channels here. Gonna be running a 4-channel and then a bass. The Tar Amps bass amp, of course, so 6 channels. Maybe be adding another 2-channel amplifier later on, I don't know. But how are we gonna hook this up to the factory? Well, we're gonna be using this. This NVX high level to low level output converter. And this is the model number right here. X Micro LOC 2. Okay, and here is the instructions that came with it. A little wiring diagram tells you what each wire does. This takes up to 150 watts. Says it's low distortion, 6-to-1 step down. And apparently it has signal, what do they call this? Signal output. You know, you can adjust the signal output right there. Gonna have to get our multimeter and see what kind of voltage is coming out of this. But anyway, this is how we're gonna get a signal from our factory stereo to this guy. It's gonna go under the seat, and then we're also gonna be upgrading the 4-channel amplifier to this. Got the Down for Sound JP 8.4. I've wanted one of these since they came out. Finally pulled the trigger and got one. So there's a quick breakdown of that, what we're going to be doing there. And then for the bass output signal, we're going to be using this. Oops, excuse me. Basically a bass reconstruction processor. It's sort of NVX's version of audio control. Oh, what do you call that thing that everybody has? Anyway, bass processor. We're going to be using this with this to be sending a signal to the bass amp. Let me show you guys one more thing. These are the speakers that we're going to be upgrading to. The Warzone WCP 6.5 coaxial. So this is by Gravity Audio, the Warzone series. And this is a coaxial with a horn in the middle. So here's what we've done here. We've removed this gauge bezel here. All that you needed to do was use this pry tool to get around it and kind of pop it off. It's got these little clips on it that hold it on there. And then unplug it right here. Okay, so that's your hazard light right there for that. So anyway, there were also 4 screws holding that in place right there, right there. Oop, focus. And then 2 on the other side. So what needs to happen is this comes out. Then you got a couple of plugs here. This one is your antenna. This one is for your backup camera. This one is for that USB right down there. And this is your stereo. This is what we need to get into to wire up that high level to low level. So guys, this is how I did the wired the high level to low level converter into the car. I made this. So I've got these little I bought these on Amazon. They're just these little universal plugs. And I wired my, well, and I got the male end here and a female end here. These are designed to plug into each other, but I swapped them around and ran them together like this, and I bought 2 pair, and I'll show you why in a minute. But what I did was I just wired my high level to low level in with this. Here's your remote, here's your ground. Well, it says this is a different ground. You already have like a primary ground, this black one. but then it gives you another ground here. It says this is the reference ground. Optional if noise is present. I think I'm just gonna ground this anyway, somewhere else in the car, because I don't want to wait to see if I have noise present. I just want to do it. And then it's got a remote coming off of it. Now I wired this in a little differently. You guys tell me if this makes sense. So the white with the black, and then the white with the black is the left front. So I wired that in the way it's supposed to. White, and black. White, and black. Okay, pretty straightforward. Well, then the next one's the gray, and the gray and the black are the right front. So we got the left front and the right front. Well, what I did was I took the gray and I routed it in with the purple instead. Gray and black with purple and black, gray with purple. Now what that is the rear right. So I've got the front left and the rear right. The reason that I did that is because I looked up on a bunch of forums, and it said that the signal going to the front and the signal going to the back should be the same. I don't know if that's true or not, and I don't have the equipment to test that. But you can see our DSP only has 2 inputs, and then it has summing power, so it can take the signal from both your left and your right and sum them into one channel. So the reason I wired one of these into the front channel and one of these into the rear channel is so that I could get the full signal that my factory unit is putting out. So what I mean by that is, let's just say that Mitsubishi is sending more bass or something to the back doors than it is to the front doors. Well, I want to pick that up. Or let's say there's some sort of fader effect from one side to the other on certain songs, or from the front to the back on certain songs. Well, I don't want that to completely cut out when I've got it wired this way, because with this DSP you only have a right and a left. You don't have a front and a back. And so if I can get one from the left in the front and one from the right on the back, then I should be gathering all the musical signal that this head unit is putting out. And then I can adjust it however I want using the DSP, because I'm pretty sure it has that function. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. That's just kind of the way my mind was thinking about it. If it doesn't work out, I'll definitely let you guys know. So let me show you why I use those universal plugs to wire in my low level, my high level to low level. So here's what we have in the car. Here's that wiring harness that I made that I just showed you guys. And here is the wiring harness coming off of the car. And here is the harness that's going to go into the stereo. See, this is the car's part. This came with the car, and that plugs right in the back here, like that. Okay, so then this plugs here. Okay, so if I plug this into this like that, and then plug it into there, it's basically the factory setup. And then this, I can plug this in between these two, here and then here. So that way I have my high level, low level connection. So I basically just cut the factory wires. See, this plug here was here. So I just cut that, then wired this plug onto the factory wires, wired this plug onto the factory harness, That way there's a break. I can unplug this here if I want to, and then plug this in between them to give me this. Now, the reason I did that was if for whatever reason I want to change the stereo, or maybe I want to change the high to low level. Maybe if I want to make a change, I want to be able to just unplug things instead of having to cut wires again. This way I can remove everything and just remove it right back to factory without having to cut anything. I can just unplug it, remove my harness, plug it back in, factory setup. Now, that was a chore because the factory wires in this Mitsubishi and the aftermarket colors that normally go with an aftermarket plug do not match. So I had to look at the plug that came with the Mitsubishi and compare it to just a an aftermarket stereo plug that goes with this Mitsubishi. See, like I had one of these from when I had my other stereo in here, and I had to compare the plugs. And instead of just trying to think about it in your mind, the best way to go about it, and this is what I did, is you make yourself a chart. So I drew the plug. It has 20 spots. Then you can see I have factory, then I have aftermarket. So I basically just wrote out what pin location goes with the color. Then I looked at the plug on the factory and just wrote the corresponding color and pin location. That way I know, like for instance, the purple goes with the brown. Now there were two browns right next to each other. Come on, Mitsubishi, there are other color wires out there. So what I did was I put a little piece of tape on one of them, and then that way I could differentiate the two after I cut it. But see, then the orange illumination is the gray with the black stripe, so on and so forth. So I made this chart for myself. That way when I'm referencing, or excuse me, that way when I'm wiring my harnesses together, I have something to reference instead of just a bunch of bare wires and me trying to remember which one was which. If you're going to be wiring stuff into your factory plugs, I would highly recommend doing this, because once you cut the plug, if you don't know where one of those wires goes, it is going to be a pain to try to figure it out. Now this took me a good while to make this, just because I was in the car looking at the wires, looking at a chart, looking at this, looking at that. And so this took me probably an hour to really come up with, okay, what's what here? But then once I did it, the wiring process just went smooth, because I had a key, I had a chart, I had something that would tell me what to do. So again, if you're going to be wiring into factory wiring harnesses, you've got to have something like this. Either find one online or make one yourself. Okay, so let's show you how this is going to work. All right, so I already took this harness, Tessa taped it, made it look a little nicer. I did that here as well. So then this plugs into here, like that. Okay, then we have this guy right here. Right, we got our low level, high level to low level, excuse me, there. Then these are some bare wires. This is gonna be my remote. I'm gonna ground this somewhere else, probably in there somewhere. And then these are just some wires that didn't end up getting used. So there's our little jumper right there. This plugs into here like this. I'm gonna put you down just for a minute. Like that. So then we end up with that there. Then our converter coming off, and then this plugs into that. So I'm gonna put you down one more time. All right, so this is what we end up with then. Okay, so then I know it's kind of long, but there's space in there for me to tuck this down. And then when I want to change this out, if I ever do, I have a way to just quickly disconnect these things. So let's just kind of tuck this back into place. See, it goes back in there no problem. It just kind of folds up back in there like that. All right, well, that was kind of a pain in the butt doing all that, but I think in the long run it'll help me out if I ever want to make any changes, like I said. And my OCD would kind of get the best of me if I was just splicing wires into factory harnesses, just kind of, I don't know, I just don't like to do it that way. I want to make a harness, that way I can remove things and change things and make it a little bit more nicer, more professional maybe, I don't know. Okay, well, that's the video for you guys. That is how I took a signal from the factory stereo and I'm going to send it to my DSP. I really appreciate you guys watching the video. It looks like my subscriber number is slowly going up. As always, like, share, subscribe, comment. Again, I really appreciate it. And there will be 2 more parts to this series. We're going to be doing me actually installing the DSP and the 4-channel amp. And then the third part is going to be installing the speakers and the doors and doing an unboxing on those. So again, I greatly appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. Have a nice day and play your music loud.